She was already there when I pulled up the dirt road after 3 long years away. The old cabin stood exactly where I'd left it. But the first thing I saw wasn't the porch or the pine trees, it was her. A blonde woman in a pastel sweater stood by the gate, waving a bright orange "No Trespassing" sign like she'd just won a prize. She nailed it onto my fence post, then turned around as if she had caught a criminal red-handed. "Excuse me?" she yelled before I even stepped out of my truck. "You can't be here. This property is under HOA protection. Leave before I call the police." I couldn't help but laugh, not because it was funny, but because her nerve was unbelievable. "Lady, this is my land. I built that cabin with my own hands. Who are you supposed to be?" Her eyes narrowed. "Don't play dumb with me. I'm the president of the association now, and according to our bylaws, this land is restricted. That cabin doesn't even belong to you anymore." Behind her, a small group of neighbors had gathered. Some looked uneasy, others entertained, like they'd been waiting for this. An older man muttered under his breath, "Here we go." I stepped closer, my boots crunching on the gravel. "You're putting signs on my property without permission?" She smirked and crossed her arms. "Your permission? Sweetheart, you don't get a say anymore. You abandoned it. I've been maintaining it. And if you don't leave, I'll have law enforcement drag you off." I paused, feeling that slow burn rising in my chest. But instead of yelling, I said one calm line that made her flinch. "Call them. Let's see what happens when the real owner answers the door." Her phone was in her hand before I finished. She jabbed at the screen with trembling fingers, making sure everyone was watching. "Yes, this is an emergency," she said loudly. "There's a trespasser on my property, armed and aggressive." I froze. Armed, aggressive? I hadn't even raised my voice. She was twisting reality right in front of everyone. The neighbors shifted awkwardly, but not one of them spoke up. "Ma'am, that's a false report," I said evenly, though my jaw tightened. "You realize that's a crime, right?" She waved me off with arrogance. "We'll see who's committing crimes when the police arrive. Enjoy your last few minutes of freedom." Her confidence stung, but I didn't argue. I walked past her and unlatched my gate. She gasped and stumbled back like I had pulled a weapon. "What do you think you're doing?" she screeched. "Going home," I said calmly, brushing past the new wooden signs she'd hammered into my fence. They looked absurd against the old cedar posts I'd set years ago. Every one of them screamed her name, not mine. The crowd parted as I walked toward the cabin. I could feel their eyes on me, some curious, some nervous. My hands itched to rip those signs down, but I held back. I wanted witnesses when the truth came out. Karen stormed after me, her voice rising with every step. "You can't ignore me. This isn't your cabin anymore. The HOA seized it legally." I stopped on the porch and turned slowly. "Funny thing about the law," I said, meeting her eyes. "It works better when you tell the truth." That's when the faint wail of a siren echoed through the mountain air. It grew louder until a sheriff's cruiser rolled up the gravel road. Karen straightened up like she'd just called in the cavalry. She rushed toward the car, waving her arms. "Officer, over here! Arrest him before he runs." The deputy stepped out, hand resting on his holster as he scanned the scene. "What's going on here?" he asked calmly. Karen pointed straight at me. "That man is trespassing on private property. He threatened me and refuses to leave. I want him removed immediately." The deputy's eyes shifted to me. "Sir, is that true?" I met his gaze. "No, deputy. This is my cabin, my land, my deed. I just came back after 3 years and she's been posting fake signs on my property." Karen laughed sharply. "Oh, please. He's lying. He abandoned this place. The HOA took control and I'm the president. I have every right to keep him out." The deputy raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, this county doesn't recognize HOA authority on private land outside city limits." Her face faltered for a second, then hardened again. "He's lying. Check the records if you don't believe me." The deputy nodded. "Good idea." He stepped aside, radio crackling as he called dispatch with the parcel number on his GPS. The crowd went silent. Karen crossed her arms, but her jaw twitched. She was nervous. I leaned against the porch rail and said quietly, "You sure you want to double down on this lie, Karen? Because when those records come back, you're going to wish you'd stayed off my land." Her smirk wavered, but she didn't back down. Then the radio crackled again. "Confirmed property deed still in the name of..." And my full name rolled through the air. Every head turned toward Karen. The deputy looked at her squarely. "Ma'am, looks like this land belongs to him. Care to explain why you've been reporting otherwise?" Karen's smile twitched, but she forced a shaky laugh. "That must be outdated paperwork." I filed new claims through the HOA. He abandoned this property so it defaults to community control. Everyone here knows it. The neighbors looked uneasy. A few exchanged glances, but no one backed her up. One man muttered, "That's not how it works." I pulled a folded paper from my jacket and held it up. "This is the updated deed. Taxes paid and recorded last month. You still want to argue with county records?" Karen's face went pale, but she wasn't done. She pointed at me dramatically. "He forged that. Don't believe a word. He's dangerous. He threatened to hurt me if I didn't back down." The deputy's eyes narrowed. "Threatened you? Did anyone here witness that?" Silence. No one moved. Finally, a woman in a wide-brimmed hat spoke. "Officer, he never threatened her. All he said was, 'This is his land.'" Karen spun toward the woman, furious. "Stay out of this. You don't know what you heard." But the deputy stepped closer, his tone firm. "Ma'am, making a false police report is serious. Posting fake signs on someone's property is trespassing, maybe even fraud." Karen's hands shook as she tried to keep her composure. "You don't understand. I was protecting the neighborhood." "He doesn't deserve this land." I didn't even have to speak. The deputy's eyes stayed locked on her, waiting. Then a second police cruiser pulled up, tires crunching on gravel. My chest tightened when I saw who stepped out. It wasn't just another deputy. It was Sheriff Daniels, the man I hadn't seen in years. He stepped out slowly, adjusting his hat as the crowd drew back. Everyone sensed something serious was about to happen. Karen's face lit up like she'd just won. She rushed toward him, shouting, "Sheriff, thank God you're here. Arrest this man. He broke into my property and tried to intimidate me. I'm the HOA president and I demand protection." The sheriff didn't even glance at her. His eyes found mine across the yard, and for a long moment neither of us spoke. Then the sheriff exhaled sharply and shook his head. "Well, I'll be damned. I thought you'd never come back." Karen froze. "Wait, you know him?" The sheriff finally turned toward her, his expression turning cold. "Know him, ma'am? He's the rightful owner of this land. I've hunted with his family since I was a kid. His father left him this cabin fair and square." The crowd murmured in surprise. Karen's confidence cracked, but she tried one last time to fight back. "Sheriff, you can't just take his side because you're friends. He abandoned this place. That makes it community property." "The HOA has rights here." Sheriff Daniels' voice cut through the air like steel. "Lady, let me make this clear. HOA rights stop where private deeds begin. You've been trespassing, harassing, and filing false reports. If I find even one forged document among those signs you posted, you'll be in cuffs before sundown." Karen's face lost all color. She tried to speak, but no words came. The neighbors behind her began whispering, this time louder, some even laughing at how completely she had been exposed. I stayed silent, letting it all sink in. But then the sheriff added something that hit even harder. "And you should count yourself lucky because if he wanted, he could press charges right now." Karen's mouth dropped open. For the first time, she had no answer. The sheriff's words hung heavy in the air. Her lips trembled, but her pride wouldn't let her back down fully. She straightened her shoulders, her voice sharp but weaker now. "You can't just let him take over. You don't know how long I've been protecting this place, keeping people out, making sure it stayed decent." I cut her off. "Protecting it? You mean nailing trash signs to my fence and scaring off anyone who came near? That's not protecting, Karen, that's stealing." The neighbors finally found their courage. The old man from earlier stepped forward, shaking his head. "He's right. We told you plenty of times this wasn't your land. You just kept saying the HOA had power here. Most of us knew it wasn't true, but you threatened to fine us if we didn't listen." A young couple nodded quickly. "She even told us if we didn't follow HOA rules, we'd lose access to the lake. We didn't want trouble, so we stayed quiet." Sheriff Daniels' jaw tightened. "That true?" he asked, his voice low and warning. Karen's mask slipped. I did what I had to. Somebody had to be in charge. If he wasn't here, then it was my responsibility. This valley would have fallen apart without me." I stepped down from the porch slowly, every eye following me. My boots hit the dirt as I moved closer. I kept my voice steady. "Karen, listen to me. This land and this cabin, they're not just property. They're my family's legacy. And you?" I pointed at the sign still nailed to the post. "You tried to erase it just so you could play Queen of the Valley." The sheriff cleared his throat. "I think I've heard enough. Karen, this is your last warning. Take those signs down, apologize to these people, and get off this man's property. or I'll put you in the back of my cruiser right now." Her bravado finally broke. Her hands shook as she searched for an excuse, but nothing came. The crowd wasn't with her anymore. Every whisper, every stare, it was all against her. Before she could answer, one of the deputies stepped up and whispered something to the sheriff. Daniels frowned and turned back to Karen. "Interesting," he said slowly. "Care to explain why the HOA account you've been running has been collecting money from these neighbors without any legal registration behind it?" The gasp that followed hit harder than any siren. Karen's face turned pale as the sheriff's words landed. That's a mistake," she stammered, clutching her sweater like a shield. "The HOA is real. It's official. The deputy interrupted, holding up a small folder. "We checked the state registry. There's no HOA here. No filings. No legal authority. Which means every dollar you collected," he paused, "was fraud." The crowd erupted. Angry voices rose from every side. "You took thousands from us," someone shouted. "You said it was for road repairs. You made us pay for your new gate." Another yelled. Karen spun toward them in panic. "No, that money went to community projects. I was keeping this place safe for all of you, but no one was buying it anymore." The young couple from before stepped forward, faces red with anger. "We gave you half our savings because you said the county would fine us if we didn't. You lied to us." The sheriff rested his hand on his belt, calm but firm. "Ma'am, I've got more than enough to arrest you. Fraud, impersonating authority, harassment, filing false reports. Want me to keep going?" Her eyes darted between him, me, and the neighbors, desperate for help. But all she saw was betrayal and anger staring back. I stepped closer and looked her in the eye. "Karen, this didn't have to happen. You could have just left my land alone. But you wanted power, and now you're about to lose everything." The sheriff gave a short nod to his deputy. "Cuff her." The deputy moved forward, pulling out the restraints. Karen backed up, shaking her head. "No, you can't do this to me. I am the HOA." The crowd burst into laughter at her final outburst, bitter, mocking laughter. She had built her little kingdom on lies, and now it was falling apart right in front of her. But just as the deputy reached for her wrist, Karen's eyes snapped toward me, full of defiance. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You don't know what you've started." The words hung in the air like poison, but the deputy didn't wait. The cuffs clicked around her wrists, and the sheriff gave the order. "Get her in the car." The crowd watched silently as the so-called HOA president was led to the cruiser, her fake power stripped away in seconds. As the door slammed shut, one neighbor turned to me, guilt in his eyes. "We should have spoken up sooner. She had us all scared." I shook my head. "What matters is that it ends today. No one here owes her another cent, and no one's losing their home because of her lies." The sheriff gave me a look of respect. "You did right keeping calm," he said quietly. "A lot of folks would have handled this with fists. You let the truth do the work." Karen's muffled shouting from the back seat made a few people laugh, but I didn't. I walked up to that ugly orange "No Trespassing" sign she'd nailed on my fence, yanked it off in one hard pull, and threw it to the dirt. The wood cracked, the letter split. I turned back to the crowd and said the one line that hit everyone straight in the heart. "This land was mine yesterday. It's mine today, and no one will ever steal it again." The neighbors cheered. Some came forward to shake my hand. For the first time in years, I felt like the valley truly belonged to me again, not just on paper, but in spirit. The sheriff tipped his hat. "Welcome home." As the cruisers rolled away, carrying Karen toward the justice she earned, I looked at my cabin against the fading sun. The fight was over. My land was safe. And deep down I knew this wasn't just about a cabin. It was about standing your ground when someone tries to take what's yours. Because in the end, freedom isn't given, it's defended.